Good morning. It's August 17th, a Tuesday, and Joe Biden has been in office roughly 7 months. And now he is taking a beating for the situation that exists in Afghanistan. And it's probably right that he takes the beating because, Harry Truman had a sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here." And Joe is in that position, and so the buck stops with him. But is it fair? After 20 years of fighting in Afghanistan, we decide it's time to withdraw. And Joe's advisors, the military, General Mark Miley, and others have told him that the Afghan security forces are up to the task of protecting Afghanistan. And so he goes ahead with his withdrawal plan. And some will say he should have never mentioned the date that he planned to withdraw from. But I will say that knowing what goes on in that part of the world, whether or not he mentioned it, they would have found out. They're not stupid. And the president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, had skipped town. He got out of town as fast as he could. As fast as the Taliban approached Kabul, he was gone. And of course, he was another one who said, "Don't worry, the Afghan security forces are ready to go. They can protect us." He couldn't even stand there long enough to say goodbye to his people. Anyhow, Joe ordered 5,000 troops to come back to Afghanistan to protect the people in the embassy, and then another 1,000 on top of that. And meanwhile, all the embassy people were evacuated to the airport because that was the only safe place that they could gather. And we got the troops at the airport too, so they're being well protected. But that's all we can do right now. We got to get them out of there. And we also have to deal with getting the people who were helping us in Afghanistan for these 20 years. The people who worked closely with the U.S. troops and the military, and they weren't spies or anything like that. They're just ordinary citizens who worked for the government of the United States. But we have to get them out of Afghanistan because they will be probably taken care of by the Taliban, and it won't be good. But for some reason, there can be a holdup on those poor people. For some reason, there's a lot of red tape to get them into the country. I don't understand why. We'd have to go through red tape for people who are basically providing us services in a dangerous part of the world. But that's beside the point. Getting back to Biden, he reportedly has been shocked by the speed at which the Taliban was able to take over the country, because he and his advisors had not the slightest inkling that this was possible. So Biden, who handles bad news pretty well, and his advisors were really stunned by the speed at which the Taliban executed this takeover of Afghanistan. But I don't believe that's going to bother him that much. I think Biden is the kind of guy who makes these decisions and stands by them, even if there is difficulties in the way. He believes that this is the right thing to do, that the 20 years that we spent there were actually pretty well wasted, that the Taliban were able to get into Kabul and then run over the country so quickly and prove that the 20 years were wasted. And because of that, Biden is taking the heat in this country. We, the United States, could not continue to ask our people to fight a war, a civil war, that the Afghans' own people won't fight. So why should we still have stayed there. We have Democrats on Capitol Hill and members of the former Obama administration and Republicans claiming publicly over the weekend that Biden screwed this entire situation up. How the hell could he have screwed this thing up in 7 months when we have been there for 19 and a half years before he even came on the scene? And true, he did work in the Obama administration as vice president in the middle of these 20 years. So he should have known an awful lot about what's going on in Afghanistan. And he probably did. And he misread the tea leaves. But should he get all the heat? No, but as I said before, the buck stops here. And really, if you take a good hard look at this situation, you recognize the fact that the Taliban weren't in a rush to come back. They could have waited us out. They could have waited another 20 or 30 or 50 years. Because that's what guerrilla groups do. They don't necessarily have to fight every day. They can have a war of attrition. Wait till the enemy is worn out or complacent or believes they have the situation under control. And that's exactly what the Taliban did. They waited and waited until somebody came along and said, what the fuck are we doing here? And said, let's get out of here. And let's not forget that Trump wanted to get out a year ago, but he, for whatever reason, didn't go through with it. So Biden is the last link in the chain. And he took the step, the big step, that the Taliban was waiting for. And the Taliban probably knew, because they're not stupid. They knew the Afghan security forces were inadequate, unprepared. I don't know why we didn't recognize that. Why our military and our advisors there didn't recognize the situation and claimed that these security forces could handle it. And the Afghani president, Ghani, he certainly said that because he wasn't going to admit that his people were inept. So Biden got suckered into this whole situation. And he's paying the price publicly. And don't forget, he was working on a lot of other things beside the Afghan situation. Not that I'm going to give him a pass on that because he has advisors and everything. And he should have known better. But even if he knew better, even if he knew deep down in his heart, he knew this was a mistake. But he felt he had to do it anyhow. Because 20 years is a long time and a lot of people involved in a dangerous part of the world. So yes, he's taking the heat from everybody. And all of these guys who are giving him the heat, the congressmen, the senators, the Democrats, the Republicans, all of those guys are giving him the heat. What would they have really done if they were in his situation? It's easy to point fingers at people if you're not in their shoes and you have no risk, or you're shooting your mouth off and say, that's a big mistake, big mistake. And Biden was advised by Mark Milley, the general, that the Afghan security forces could do the job. And unfortunately, he believed him and other people. And Biden will now be remembered as the president who ended America's worst war, longest war, ignominiously. This was an ignominious end to a horrible war. And Biden will carry that with him as long as he's remembered. And I think he did the right thing. And so he'll weather this storm. He'll get his people out. If he gets his people out okay, and he gets those Afghanis out who helped us, then everything should be okay. Because when we look at this is what, the third or the fourth time we've done this stupid thing? Gone someplace we didn't belong? Did we forget Vietnam? Did we forget Korea? Sure we did. Most of the people who were criticizing him probably weren't even alive at that point in time. So I think we have to let Joe continue to do his job and stop criticizing him for something that he didn't start. And I guess that's all I want to say today. Being president is a bitch. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the morning. Bye.